In the middle of the 15th century, England drifts through an atmosphere of uncertainty and exhaustion. The long and costly wars against France have drained the kingdom of its resources, leaving the treasury depleted, the countryside ravaged, and countless veterans wandering without purpose. Repeated waves of plague, successive crop failures, and local rebellions further destabilize society, and in this fragile, bruised landscape sits a king utterly unsuited to the storm gathering around him, Henry VI, gentle by nature, profoundly devout, incapable of cruelty, yet tragically incapable of ruling, a man whose temperament, admirable in a cloister, becomes ruinous on a throne. For while his contemplative spirit seeks peace in prayer, the structure of the kingdom trembles. Ambitious nobles, each commanding private armies larger than the royal forces, quickly sense the vacuum at the heart of power, and slowly, almost inevitably, England slides toward confrontation. In the rising shadow stands Richard, Duke of York, a man whose lineage stretches deeper into the royal bloodline than Henry's, whose reputation as a soldier and administrator commands respect, and whose sense of duty initially keeps him loyal to a monarch who cannot defend his own realm. Yet York's growing influence alarms the faction clustered around the Queen, Margaret of Anjou, a fierce and brilliant young woman sent from France to secure peace between the kingdoms, who discovers upon her arrival that she must assume far more responsibility than expected, for her husband's frailty forces her into a role no medieval queen was intended to play. Margaret, steadfast and formidable, defends the rights of her son, the young Edward of Westminster, forging alliances, negotiating across courts, raising armies, and becoming the driving force of the Lancastrian cause. Her determination collides head-on with York's rising authority, their conflict presenting two incompatible visions of legitimacy. And in 1453 fate delivers a devastating blow when Henry VI collapses into a deep, unresponsive trance, incapable of speech or recognition, so detached from reality that he does not even react to the news of his own son's birth. This absence of royal leadership forces the council to appoint Richard of York as protector of the realm, a position he fulfills with competence, restoring order, strengthening finances, and curbing the influence of self-serving courtiers. Yet when Henry briefly regains his senses, Margaret moves swiftly to remove York from power, driving the realm into parallel camps that no negotiation can reconcile. The first clash erupts in 1455 at St. Albans, where Yorkist forces, supported by the powerful Neville family, break the Lancastrian defences in a short but ferocious engagement. Several leading nobles fall. Henry is taken into custody and appears almost indifferent to his own capture, marking the true beginning of a war that will haunt England for 3 decades. In the years that follow, the kingdom becomes a shifting battlefield. Alliances fracture and reform, truces dissolve, and ambition feeds the violence. At the centre of these upheavals rises Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, whose wealth, charisma, military skill, and vast network of retainers grant him unparalleled influence, earning him the title a Kingmaker. It is largely through Warwick's support that the young Edward, son of the Duke of York, ascends rapidly. Edward, physically imposing, fearless in battle, magnetic in personality, contrasts sharply with his father, embodying energy, daring, and a desire to shape his own destiny. His defining moment arrives in 1461 at Towton, fought during a howling snowstorm, the deadliest battle ever witnessed on English soil, where tens of thousands perish on a field churned into a red mire. And there, Edward leads with audacity and presence, securing a monumental victory that allows him to be proclaimed Edward IV, ushering the House of York onto the throne. As king, Edward introduces reforms, encourages commerce, and begins restoring national stability. Yet his impulsive marriage to Elizabeth Woodville, a widowed noblewoman of modest standing, ignites a crisis of trust with Warwick, who had arranged a diplomatic marriage with a foreign princess. The breach is irreparable, Warwick's pride wounded and his political designs shattered, and in a dramatic reversal he aligns with Margaret of Anjou, his former enemy. forming an improbable but potent alliance that topples Edward IV in 1470, forcing him into exile while the enfeebled Henry VI is restored to the throne, though in truth ruling nothing. As the kingdom around him remains fractured, Edward returns the following year, gathering loyalists as he advances, and confronts Warwick at Barnet in a battle obscured by thick fog, where disoriented Lancastrian divisions mistakenly attack one another, enabling Edward to secure victory and leaving Warwick dead on the field, with the Kingmaker gone. Margaret makes a desperate final stand at Tewkesbury, where her army is annihilated and her son, the last direct Lancastrian heir, is slain during or after the fighting, extinguishing the dynastic core of her cores. Soon after, Henry VI perishes within the Tower of London, almost certainly murdered to prevent any future rallying of Lancastrian supporters. The Yorkist triumph appears complete, yet the realm remains fragile. For Edward IV's sudden death in 1483 leaves his 12-year-old son, Edward V, too young to rule independently. Responsibility falls to the late king's brother. Richard of Gloucester, a disciplined, loyal, and capable man who had served Edward IV faithfully in war and governance. Richard, wary of the ambitions of the Woodville faction, moves swiftly to secure the young king and his brother in the Tower of London, officially for their safety. But soon the princes vanish from public view, a disappearance that fuels whispers across England. Accusations swirl around Richard, though no definitive evidence will ever emerge. And amid this cloud of suspicion, he ascends the throne as Richard III, attempting to govern with firmness despite the shadow hanging over his legitimacy. But opposition begins to crystallize around Henry Tudor, a descendant of the Beaufort line, whose claim is weak by blood yet powerful in symbolism, representing the hope of unity after years of turmoil. In 1485, the two forces meet at Bosworth Field, where Richard, courageous and unyielding, charges directly toward Henry in a final attempt to end the contest with his own hand. But he is overwhelmed, unhorsed, and killed, marking the fall of the Plantagenet dynasty after more than 3 centuries of rule. Henry Tudor takes the crown as Henry VII and seals the fragile peace by marrying Elizabeth of York, eldest daughter of Edward IV, uniting the red rose of Lancaster and the white rose of York into the emblematic Tudor rose, symbolizing reconciliation and renewal through cautious governance, financial discipline, the reduction of private armies, and the strengthening of royal authority. Henry VII reconstructs the kingdom from the wreckage of civil war, guiding England toward a new era defined by stability, centralization, and the early forces of modern statecraft. Thus the conflict known as the Wars of the Roses stands not merely as a dynastic feud but as a profound transformation in which a kingdom, battered by ambition, betrayal, shifting loyalties, and heartbreaking loss, ultimately finds the foundations of its future, forged through the ambitions of warriors, the endurance of queens, the rise and fall of mighty nobles, the mystery of vanished heirs, the last charge of a doomed king, and the ascent of a new dynasty that will shape the destiny of England for generations to come.